Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Global Changemaker. This is your day-by-day series. It was only going to be 14 days, but it was so interesting and we were learning so many things about all the entrepreneurs that I have within my network that I wanted to keep it going. So I have a very, very special lady for you to meet today. We've been hanging around in the same circles, much like most of these entrepreneurs that I've been interviewing over the last 3 weeks. We've been hanging around in the same circles for a long time. But it's only recently that we've really got to know each other since Sarah started coming to the Thinkubators that we're running in London. So it's been a real pleasure to collaborate, to connect, and to start doing great things together. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the amazing, the fabulous, the burnout tamer, Miss Sarah Ross. Hello, Sarah. How you doing?
Hi, Sammy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm dying to get deeper into your business. I can't wait to dig into it because you've got all kinds of stuff. And it was recently we realized we've also got a kind of a charitable kind of mission in common as well. And these things all start to kind of bubble to the surface as you're chatting and talking about other things. So let's start off by, finding out a bit more about how you got into what you're doing now.
To be honest, I kind of fell into it. And I went through at least 3 different business models before I got to what I'm doing now.
Wow.
And I think it was very much along the lines of the very first idea somebody else gave me. And I didn't really buy into it. It was also not a good time in my life. And then when I realized that I hadn't really bought into that, but I still wanted to be in business for myself, I kind of chose what I wanted to talk about, something that I was really, really good at, but I wasn't really passionate about. And at the same time, I was still on my healing journey. And by the time that kind of came to an end, realized that was actually what I wanted to be in business doing.
Interesting. So give us a little pinch of that magic you've got going on there. What is the business? What are you building?
So I'm now the founder, CEO of Your Reason to Breathe, which is burnout prevention and recovery for entrepreneurs and executives to help them reset, recharge, and thrive after burnout. And for many of them to actually stop burnout destroying what they've struggled or what they've built up because they lose their top talent to stress, burnout, depression as things get tough.
Yeah. If you watching this right now have ever had any period of burnout, or you felt burned out, or you've been through that position where you recognize that actually you're pushing your body beyond that boundary, you'll know what that boundary is. If that's ever happened for you, then give us a yes or a thumbs up, so we can see, and come and say hello, by the way. Come and say hello in the comments below so we can see you. Make sure you put your name so we know who it is that's joining us today. So Sarah, this is, it's kind of an epidemic, isn't it? There's lots of entrepreneurs burning out. I've been through it myself, and fortunately I didn't go through a medical burnout, but I know Sarah Sparks, for example, she did. She ended up in the Priory. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Priory, it is like the number one go-to place, like a rehabilitation center for celebrities and addicts and people. So for Sarah to have been admitted to that hospital, it must have been beyond burnout. And so, and she was working in a massive corporate organization at a very high level. And I think that there's a lot of people that are actually going through that but not sharing it because they feel like a failure, or they don't want to let the team down, or don't want, they're like ego or whatever that's stopping them from doing that. Would you say that it's a lot bigger than we even know it is, Sarah?
I think for sure. I mean, there's statistics out now from mental health organizations that say actually more than 2/3 of every absence in a corporation or in a business are actually due to stress and depression. But people don't actually give that as the reason, because we are unfortunately living in a time of fear for people's jobs, fear for, security. And therefore people, want it to look like they've had the flu a couple of times rather than admitting that actually it was because they were depressed, they couldn't get out of bed, they were suffering from, any number of things, but it was actually all related to stress. They just don't want to admit that that's what it was, because the repercussions in a business that's looking to lay off staff, whilst they can't say it's because of that, you feel like you're the weaker person. You put yourself up to potentially lose your job.
Right. And do you think that young businesses, entrepreneurs, business owners who are really pushing the limits of the potential that their body has, later, longer hours, more stress, taking on maybe more than they can chew, the pressures of social media, having to keep up with the Joneses as such, well, if all these businesses, that's how they act, therefore, I've just got to push on, because how is it they find it so easy and I'm not finding it easy? The reality is that they're not finding it easy, just so you know that. The reality is that they are going through all the same things, but the social media is a place where they can put that gloss on. But,
Yeah.
what about the brand behind the burnout? I mean, what actually happens to a business when you start burning out?
So let's take it from this sort of entrepreneur environment. You start pulling back from all those things that actually help you establish some balance in your life. And no matter where you are in your entrepreneur journey, whether you are starting out or whether you are totally, super established and the money's flowing in, there is a need for your body to have time to heal and to rest. And you can't just keep throwing more things on the to-do list, signing up for new things. Here's another stream of passive income. All of these things actually still require work. And it's actually saying, you know what? I've come to that point where the only thing I need is rest. And that, for me, I had the Instagram life. I had, if you'd looked at my Instagram, if you'd looked at my Facebook, my life looked amazing. I was traveling 85% of the time. There was always a picture of me in business class with some glass of champagne or something. And yet I wasn't sleeping more than 1 or 2 hours a night. I was under jet lag most of the time. Oof. And, my body started giving me signals. And I think this is what I learned through my journey. My body was telling me probably 3 years before I fully burnt out that I needed to stop. I needed to listen. And with me, it gave me migraines. With other people, it's stomach complaints. It's that cold you can never get rid of. It's the fact that you stop exercising when it was your stress release. You give up all the things that you previously did in order to just keep going and not let anyone know that you're struggling, when actually it's the opposite that you need to do.
So how do you, when you're running a business and you've got all these hats that you're wearing, you could be the accountant 1 minute and the bookkeeper another minute and the marketer another minute and the spokesperson for the organization another minute and delivering the service another minute and coming up with the, creation, research, development, blah, right? With so many things to do. How does and I actually found that the bigger my team grew, I thought that there would be less pressure. I thought it would be much better to have a bigger team, because the more team you have, then the less I have to do. But then what happened was it was just more management, unless you can put that manager in between you and the team, which obviously I learned having burned out. I didn't realize I needed that, and you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So how does a small business owner or an entrepreneur, where there's only maybe 1 or 2 of you in the organization, because that's mostly who are watching the Confessions of a Changemaker series, how does somebody who has the responsibility for pretty much everything build in a burnout taming strategy so you don't get to that point?
Yeah, it's not easy, but we also live in a time where we can hire people to do things for us by the hour, or get people whose zone of genius is everything that you can't do, and bring them in either as an intern or as a freelancer. We live in a freelancer economy now. It's very easy to get somebody who loves doing all the jobs you hate. And I know that's somebody else's advert for something else. I'm not entirely sure what, but it is, if you are not creative, then outsource doing memes or, banners or things like this. If you are the person that does the training delivery, then get somebody else to do your accounts. Don't sit there and try and become an accountant, because it saves you, 20 hours a year or something, just, your basic accounts. But somebody else could probably do that in, a couple of hours. But for you, that's weeks and months of stress. And whilst, at the beginning you were saying, oh, well, have I got the money for that? It's not the money that you give out to pay them. It's the money that you are losing by spending your time on that and not doing what you are best at. Yeah. So for me, first thing that gets outsourced, ironing. I don't even want to have to think about where the iron is in my house.
Yeah.
But if I know somebody else is going to do it, and my tops will always look like they've come out and they've been ironed, then that's a stress I don't have to think about.
Mm-hmm. I remember my ex-husband, emphasis on the ex. I remember him saying to me once, because when I started my business, my first business back in 2002, and we got married in 2004. So in 2002, I'd started my business and it was thriving, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was feeling my way all the way. I'd been made redundant 2 Christmases in a row. I thought I could see the business. I was more in the hospitality design industry at that point. So, of course, they pick you up in April, work you like a crazy thing right up until December. And then December, they lay everybody off just before Christmas, because now they don't need the overheads of a team of staff until you get to sort of Mother's Day, around the 20th of March. This is in the UK, of course. And so 2 years in a row, I'd been made redundant. And then, and so that second time, and I can totally recognize this, us having this conversation now, I'm doing a little bit of a trip down memory lane. But the first time it happened, I was destroyed. My confidence was destroyed. And so then I took a job that I didn't like, because I was so worried about not working, that I took something that totally undervalued me. And they worked me so hard. I was doing at least 15 to 16 hours a day as an employee. I mean, that's tough working for yourself, but working for someone else's business, doing that. But I didn't recognize it. I'm only recognizing it now, looking back on it, how little my self-worth was as a result of going through that process. And they did exactly the same thing to me. Work me. And then that was it. Let go 2 days before Christmas. So when I went into my next job, of course, my self-worth was even lower. But one thing that they did really well was they encouraged me to get out and start networking, which I'd never done before in my life. So I get out there, I start networking, I go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting where there's about 200 people in a room for the first time. It was a massive baptism by fire. But that was the first time that I realized how good I am with people, and that actually is my skill to be behind a screen, or is my skill to manage somebody else that would be behind that screen, and me go out there and start creating business and opportunities. And so that's how I kind of got into this whole networking side of things, because I was a designer. And so, looking back on that time now, when I could see because by that point I'd learned everything not to do. I'd watched the management team. I was already looking for the clues. So I could see where it got to, I think it was the 4th of December, 2002. And I was thinking, oh my God, so this is the 4th, the 5th, is coming. So I'm laying there in bed and I'm thinking, this is the most horrendous time of year for me to think about going it alone. But by that point, because I'd realized I was so good with people, I'd picked up my confidence again and thought, hang on, I think I found my skill. I wasn't quite sure exactly where it was, but I think I'd found it. So when I made that decision to set up my business, and it was like the 5th of December, so this is about 2:00 in the morning, I make that decision. I walk into work that day. I'm like, I'm done. I could see they were totally over trading. They were running insolvent, and I could see all those things because I'd learned all of that blindly through other people's businesses. So I knew what to look for. And I remember thinking, well, hang on a minute. If I'm burning myself out for this person, I could be working my own hours and doing this myself. you know, and focusing on this. But of course, I got really busy because the only model I knew was the model I had of being worked really hard from those other businesses. So now I'm working really hard, but super really hard, because now this is like, oh, you know, so I never knew what burning out was. And I remember saying to my ex-husband, you know, I think I need somebody to do the cleaning. I need to bring somebody in to do the cleaning, the washing and the ironing. And he, the way he looks at me, the look he gave me, he said, we will never have a cleaner. We will never have somebody do that, because that's only for posh people.
Posh people.
And I remember that. I was just like, oh my God, you know. And it was such a necessity. It was such a necessity. But I listened to that. And I suppose the point that I'm getting to is that you are always going to have people around you that have their own opinion of what you should do and how you should do it. And actually, it's these people that are causing the burnout, because we're trying to live up to their expectations and their standards. I know it's not 100% of the time that's happening, but I see it so often. It's because you're trying to live up to someone else's standards, or you're modeling a way of working that actually doesn't work. But if it's the only way you know how to do it, then you're not going to get where you want to go, and your business won't grow. So Sarah, out of all of that, because I just went off on one then, sorry, down memory lane. Out of all of that, you know, is that a common problem? Do you see that people are burning out because they just don't know another model?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I used to work in ethics and compliance, and we would always hear, this is how we do it here. This is how this business works. We've always done it like this. And you know, businesses that are established have their processes, and so to change them, or to even bring in, you know, new ways of working, is a change that most people then go, I don't like change, just let's do it like we've always done it. And the same, if you then leave that environment, you only know what you know. So if you've seen that meetings are run in a certain way, or customer relationship management is done via a certain system, you're actually more likely to pick up the same system because you know it, rather than finding the things that you need for your business. You know, and we, you know, we also get bombarded every day with, I can help you with this. I can, you know, every Facebook ad is offering you some new system, some new guarantee. And when you're starting out, you know, all of those things look great because they're all promising you things that look like overnight successes, and they're not. You know, we are in a marathon. We are not in a sprint. But it is knowing where to look for the right answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I mean, guys and girls that are watching this now, what do you think? What do you think is causing burnout? What causes your burnout when you get to that point? If there's ever a point where you feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, because I felt like that for sure, you know, where I felt like I didn't realize, you know, I thought last time I felt tired, I was tired. Now I've gone beyond that level of tired. You know, like, what do you think? Is it that's you know, do you catch yourself doing that? You know, for those of you that are watching or watching the replay, you know, to put a comment with the video. You know, because it's actually a serious problem, isn't it? Because it doesn't only affect you, it affects your family, it affects the business. I mean, how could you possibly be working 100% if you are working yourself way beyond the way that your body was designed to do it? You know, I mean, it's not even physical labor anymore, is it? It's like, you know, eyes in front of a screen, bright screens, EMF. You think of all of the different environmental factors that are around us as well. If you work in an office or you work around other people, you've got their moods as well that you're absorbing. So you're kind of like this human sponge that's just taking it all in. You know, at what point do you realize that you're at saturation? Sarah, have you got any tips for, you know, things to look out for? I know that there's the cute things like, you know, drinking enough water, taking enough breaks and things like that. But is there something that, you know, that you have like a personal go-to list of, okay, if you only had to do 3 things that would dramatically reduce burnout, what would they be?
So we have a quiz on the website that actually has 15 burnout factors. And any one of those will decrease your productivity, how you feel about yourself, your self-worth. In combination, so when you start getting 3, 4, 5, even 14 of those, that's when, you know, burnout is going to be taking over your life. When I hit my burnout point, I had 14 out of 15 of these factors that were regularly in play. My, you know, my story is it basically took me to the brink of suicide. But there were a few things that actually would have impacted on more than one of those factors to reverse them. So the first one is getting enough sleep. Your body needs time to heal. It needs time to rest. And all of the different parts of your body actually heal at a different time of night, which is what I learned in the last few months. And so it is about having a regular pattern, going to bed roughly the same time, getting, you know, I could sit here and go, everyone needs 6 to 8 hours. Now, that's not true. Some people need 4, some people need 10, but it's knowing what that is for you and then building that into your schedule, into your calendar. The second one is actually smiling and laughing at some point during every day. Now, get yourself a playlist on YouTube, some photos on your phone, get yourself a playlist of music that actually lifts your mood. Because we actually, when we start to smile, when we start to laugh, trigger all the happy hormones that the body produces anyway. Serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. And they all start with the simple act of just smiling. Smiling, laughing. So get some clips of your favorite comedian and watch them for 5 minutes. The impact on your mood and how you're feeling. It also stops the body from producing cortisol, which is the stress hormone.
Mm.
And by stopping it, it actually then allows the rest of your body to work properly. So
Brilliant.
At the height of my burnout, my body was only producing cortisol. It wasn't producing any other hormones that it needed. So I was having thyroid problems. I was having hormonal problems, all because the actual base ingredients of cortisol are the same base ingredients that you need for estrogen, testosterone, thyroid, all of these things. And so it's like going to the supermarket and only going in one aisle when you actually need things from every single one that's there.
Wow. Oh, that's a good analogy. And what would be the third thing?
The third one is burnout feels like your whole world is collapsing. And actually, it could just be a tiny change that you need to make. So the analogy I always use is Christmas lights. You know, those old-fashioned Christmas lights where if one bulb was slightly unscrewed, none of those lights would come on. And so the whole, you know, living room, you flick the switch and the whole living room is still dark. There's nothing. And you will sit for hours and it will turn that it's like a quarter turn of one bulb and suddenly they all come on. And that quarter turn, that half turn of one little light bulb in those Christmas lights is the same as getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, putting you back on your calendar. So you do not have to have a huge lifestyle change to tame burnout. You do not have to leave your job. You do not have to, you know, completely overhaul your whole diet, exercise, train for a marathon. It's simply those little things that actually give you a huge boost.
That's brilliant, Sarah. So Karen Roberts, hi Karen. Pressure on us that we have to do it all, as women especially, multitasking. So yes, you know, it's so funny. About 8 or 9 years ago, I saw a speaker on stage and he said, you know, why is it that we spend our entire life, you know, and especially as business owners, this was aimed at business owners. So why is it we spend our entire life being told, oh, can't you do more than one thing at once? Like, can't you think of 2 things at once? You know, we get out like constantly bombarded with this pressure of, you know, can't you do more than one thing at a time? Yet actually the real key skill of an entrepreneur or a successful business owner is the power of monotasking. It's the power of closing loops. It's the power of starting and finishing something. So I like that. And Tasha, she talks about that. I now use the closing loops analogy that Tasha uses often. Bob Doyle, hi Bobby. Bob, I experience burnout when I'm putting a lot of energy into something, but don't get energy back in the form of the feelings of results of what I'm doing. yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not alone there. You know, that's a global problem, I would say. And thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. For those of you that are joining now, you know, we're talking about burnout. We're talking about, you know, the risk of being vulnerable and saying, this isn't helping me anymore. That, you know, I'm feeling tired. I'm exhausted. How can I do things another way? Without kind of putting it all in. I always think of it as being like, you know, when you get a bottle of fizzy drink or something, if you were to shake it up, there's only so much you could shake it and keep shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. At some point, when you just twist that lid, it's just going to explode. And that must be what's happening with your body. We have to make those tiny differences that make the massive changes. Sarah, how do we take your 15 burnout factors quiz? What's the web address for that?
So that is yourreasontobreathe.com/quiz. breathe.com/quiz.
Perfect. Okay, let's see if that does it. There we go.
That's the one.
Is that right? yourreasontobreathe.com/quiz.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I'll definitely be taking that quiz. I think it's worth just having a little measurement system, something that you can, you know, I mean, it's like, I'm guessing if you're doing 2 or 3 of those things, you know, just watch out for them. If you're doing 3 to 5 of those things, be more mindful. You're doing 10 of those things, ouch. If you're doing 15 of those things, like,
go to see a doctor.
Get off the bus.
Yeah. And it's also, you know, it's 15 yes no questions and then summary at the end. So for those of you used to these Cosmo quizzes, it's structured very similar to that, with advice if you're in the 1 to 3, 4 to 7 sort of categories. But it's also a great thing that you can just do over and over again. So I tend to run it, you know, once a month, once every couple of months, just to see where I am, to see which parts of my you know, life probably need tweaking. You know, there's obvious ones for me because of my migraines around sleep and drinking lots of water. But some of the other ones, it's not until I read that question that you think, yep, I've started to pull back from social engagements, or I am, you know, keeping myself going with energy drinks. So yeah.
Gosh,
So
there's
you
a
can keep
speaker I
doing it.
know who literally lives off of Red Bull, and it terrifies me that, you know, that's the way that they keep going, and they must have 8 cans of Red Bull in a day, and there's people that die having 2 of those a day. So, you know, it's, come on, guys and girls, you know, there are things that we can do to look after ourselves in a more natural way. Sarah, the name of this is obviously Confessions of a Global Changemaker. So what would you say is, you know, if you could go back to your younger self, or if you could say to any of our entrepreneurs that are potentially heading for what you went through, what would you say to them? What piece of advice, what would you confess to them now that could change the shape of how they go through it, or stop them going through it at all?
For me, the biggest thing was ask for help. So I wasn't asking for help as I burnt out. I was hiding things from absolutely everybody that I knew. And yet on the day, you know, in that moment where everything changed for me, the very first thing I had to do was ask for help. So Einstein says the level of thinking that gets you into a problem can't get you out. And so the only way to actually start that healing process for me was to get somebody else to help pull me out of the dark hole I was in. But I think that applies for our businesses as well. You know, the other confession is I do not know how many thousands of pounds are invested in things on my hard drive, courses I will never finish, courses I have never started. You know, true confessions here, things that I thought were going to be wonderful and like they've never brought anything to fruition. And actually, it's in those situations, knowing that you have the support, or, you know, things like how to build a brand, to ask, has anyone done courses with X? Or I'm thinking of this, what do I, you know, what would be the next step? Because I think we can very easily try and shop for ourselves in, oh, I need to do brand, so I'll just go and buy a brand course, and then I need, marketing, so I'll do a marketing course. And actually, if we had just asked people for their opinion and say, I'm not sure what I need to do, then actually that's the biggest ask for help.
Yeah, and it's asking the right people who, who don't have that hidden agenda, or who, it's okay to ask your friends down the pub, but actually, I tend to find that if I ask people who haven't gone through or who don't understand the experience that I'm going through, I tend to get answers that that enable them to feel good about themselves. Because actually, if I do go and do this thing, does that mean there'll be a bigger distance between us? Or well, if you're going and doing that, then that's going to make me look like I do nothing, so I'm going to. And they have no idea they're doing it. It's just this thing within them. They really are doing it for all the right reasons. They're certain of it, but it doesn't mean that it is right. It doesn't mean it is right for you. So that's why I do love what we get to do, because I've got no hidden agenda. There's absolutely no I get nothing out of people coming onto the How to Build a Brand page and saying, Sammy, I've seen this public speaking course. I want to improve my public speaking skills. Do you think I should go for it? My first question would be, what is it about public speaking that you feel you need to improve in? Don't just go on a massive public speaking course, because you might only need to know, how do I engage the audience in the first 90 seconds of my presentation? It might be so specific as that. You don't need to go and learn all these massive things. And I love that you brought that point up, because that's a big soapbox of mine. Is so many people are going and learning things and investing in education, and it's not necessarily the education that they need right now. Yes, it might be worth it in the whole grand scheme of their entire life. But actually, sometimes you just need, that's why we run our sprints in the Brand Builders Club, because sometimes you just need, in fact, most of the time, you just need that little thing. You just need to know that one thing. It's not all of the things. You just need to know that one thing. And I mean, I'm super excited, because obviously we've got the Vision, Voice and Visibility Summit that's coming up. And that's 3 days of, yes, you'll learn some new things, but we don't want to teach you loads of new stuff. What we want to do is get you doing stuff with what you already have up here. So, it's not about, teaching from the stage and pitch and grow rich and all of that kind of stuff. It's like there is no pitching from the stage. I don't tolerate it. I won't have it at my events. It's all workshop driven. So we're taking what you already know. We're giving you a format. We're saying, right, here's the process. Here's what best practice looks like. Now let's do this on your business. Here's how you do it. Okay, now you've got to work in teams. Go. So there'll be a lot of teamwork. There'll be elements where you're working on your own, but then sharing with other people to get feedback, because that's the value really of having an amazing team. Like, we've got the best minds in the world coming together for 3 days to make it happen. Utilize the power of that. Actually, for those of you that haven't got your ticket yet, I'll just pop the little banner up there for you so you can see it. So yeah, instead of typing www, you type bit.ly/VVV Summit 2019. I believe it is case sensitive, so follow it exactly as it is on the screen there. Sarah, as you've said, you've got lots of things that you're saying no to. What made you say yes to the summit?
What made me say yes to the summit? Yoka told me to. You told me to. Complete honesty, I was very fortunate to experience at least a couple of the speakers at another event, and to know that they were going to have a longer period with us was one thing. I think the biggest advantage biggest sort of thing that I've taken from the Thinkubators is just having other people give you feedback on your ideas. Much as your friends and family have all these great intentions, they are usually not your ideal audience. And so when you start writing copy for them, you've already lost, what you really need it to say. And so for me, I am looking to rebrand going into 2020. And part of that was, you know, I could have done it a month ago, but knowing that this summit was there would say, you know what, I'm not going to start anything until I've heard all the experiences, gone through the workshops, and know what I actually need to do rather than what I think I need to do, which could be pretty far off base. So there you go.
Yeah.
More complete honesty.
No, great. That's exactly what I want, right? It's you know, at the end of the day, when you're going to something and you're taking that amount of time out of your life, it has to be something that gives you life beyond that, not taking from it, not just a jolly for 3 days. You know, although we have fun and there's some great stuff, we're going to be pushing some buttons. You know, there is a lot of mindset stuff on that first day, you know, and the thing is, what we're going to get you all to do, especially on day one, the real focus behind that, especially at the end of the day, is to have you do something that steps you out of your comfort zone, but in a way that you're working on something else. So the only time you're going to be working on something else is really at the end of that day one, where you're going to go away and we're going to give you something to do. And I'm not going to give it away, but we're going to give you something to do as a team so that you get to experience, you know, what it is like to have a whole team working on one idea, because you know it's very different when you're working in a corporate organization and there's, you know, there's measurements and there's all this hard stuff, you know, and but I think, you know, a nicer way of learning and having those realizations about your own business is, you know, sometimes it's easier to work on another idea than it is on your own. But doing that, you're learning your own stuff as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. Literally, I came off of a call about that straight onto this one. So I think I'm going to have some kind of like PTSD or something. Is it? No, it's not PTSD. What is it when you know, everything's all over and done? You know, like when people get married and it takes all this time planning something, and then all of a sudden it's yeah, like empty nest syndrome type feeling. I think I'm going to have that after the summit, because you know, literally every minute of every day right now is filled with the most exciting conversations about what's happening. And I'm like, I think I'm just, every day in my life needs to be a summit. I think we just need a summit at the end of every day. You know, like a. I think I'm going to work towards that so that we can keep the energy going. Sarah, thank you so much for your energy, for your honesty, your vulnerability, and for sharing, you know, your story and these key tips. I love the resource that you gave us, so I'm definitely going to go and do that. You'll see a little influx of all of us from here going on and signing up for your quiz now. Really looking forward to playing together next weekend. I can't believe it's next weekend.
I know, this time next week we will be networking.
We'll be in the room. A good event always starts there. So guys and girls, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I'll be live at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning as usual. It'll be step 5. We're talking about step 5 of all the 9 different ways that you can totally wreck your brand and how to avoid doing them. So it's step number 5 tomorrow. So I'll be live around 8 a.m. and then I'll be back tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. with your next Going Global Changemaking interview. So take care. I'll see you there. Sarah, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. And guys and girls, I'll see you in the group. Mwah.